Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Liz Myska, and today I have the distinct honor of having my friend, Rob Bilotta, join me for this edition.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you. Thank you.
It's good to be seen, Rob. I haven't seen you for, a couple of years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
you and I served on the Commission on Disabilities,
yes,
also known as COD.
That's right, yep.
And now, I am, I don't know if you know this, I'm the vice chair of
I didn't know that. That's awesome. When did that happen? That's great.
The Accessibility Advisory Commission.
That's great.
Well, the jury of my peers impressed upon me.
Good.
So
they're in good hands, though. They're in really good hands. So you and Bob and Jada, that's great. That's a great team.
So, but I want to turn the spotlight on you, Rob, and what you've been up to, particularly in the last month.
Sure. Yeah, we're so running for City Council, Worcester City Council District 2. We're starting the campaign. We're going to have a campaign kickoff at May 24th, Wednesday, May 24th at the White Room at 138 Green Street, and it's going to be from 5:30 to 7:30. So we're collecting signatures right now for the campaign and turning sheets in and been connecting with a lot of people in different neighborhoods and a lot of different community leaders throughout the area, throughout the district. So it's been very, very fun and very empowering just to learn about what's going on and seeing how much work people are doing. So I'm looking forward to hopefully be able to continue that work and improve things. Yeah.
Well, I know a little bit about you, but my audience doesn't know anything about you. So let's turn the spotlight on Rob. What can you tell us about who you are and what makes you tick?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Worcester. I live over by Lake Ave, Coburn Ave. So I grew up there. I went to North High, graduated in 2004. Went to Worcester State and graduated in 2008 with a major in communications, and I had a minor in urban studies. So I've always, grown up very interested in Worcester politics and in Worcester, the community, everything that goes on here. I've just always been, a big Worcester fan, I think, and a lot of people, it's my age, I think, so I'm 36 now, and a lot of people my age, it's been interesting to see different neighborhoods grow and especially like kind of bloom into like really big commercial districts like the Canal District, Shrewsbury Street. I remember being a kid and seeing that, when it was just Witoffs and a few hardware stores and a lot of kind of industrial, and it's been cool to see that change. And I still miss Witoffs for sure, and all the great. But there's still some great restaurants down there, but it's just been fun to see this transition and kind of grow up with seeing all these things happen and seeing such great projects take off. So, I think I'm always been really people focused and focused on neighborhoods. That's really, I think, the backbone of Worcester. Whenever you run into someone, you say, "Oh, what neighborhood are you from? Where did you go to high school?" So things. I think, although Worcester's a big city, it's still very neighborhood centric, and that's a good thing. I think that really builds strong communities and brings people together. So that's the big reason why I'm running. I think the city's growing, and we got to make sure that we stay focused on our people and making sure that Worcester's livable for people of all abilities. So,
and on that point, accessibility, because that's a word that's bandied about, and I think completely misunderstood.
You're right.
And I think you and I can speak about that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'll start. Having been a sighted person for the majority of my life, I've only been a VIP, a visually impaired person, for 15 years. So I'm a teenager. I'm a teenager again. And once I won't say I mastered the gig, because I don't think that's what life is about, mastering anything. I think it's experiencing things.
Absolutely.
But I had no understanding. I was always a walker. So being a pedestrian is not something foreign to me. but now no longer being a driver, and being sometimes the target, I think, of vehicles. That it's kind of like, how many points can be scored if there's a close call there. And my tenure on the Commission on Disabilities, now the Accessibility Advisory Commission, has taught me so much and brought me into contact with people who are different from me. In other words, different ages, different backgrounds, different abilities. And that, I love rubbing elbows with people who aren't like me and who can shed a light on things from their perspective.
Yeah.
And so you were one of those people, Rob.
No, likewise. I mean, from reading and working with you on the Disability Commission, I learned a lot about pedestrian safety and like the truncated domes. I had no idea. I didn't know what those the dots were there, and now every time
you rumble over them.
Every time I rumble over them in my chair, I notice them, but also I notice that how so many of them aren't pointing in the right direction.
Correct.
So I never knew that was those things were there to guide people with visual impairments. Yeah.
Right.
So it's been. I think we've all learned so much, and that's what's really great about the Accessibility Advisory Commission, that it brings so many people together from different backgrounds that are experiencing different challenges, and we can all learn on how to really work to improve those challenges together. I think it's very empowering, but there's still the pedestrian safety stuff is still a real challenge.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. You off camera, you and I were mentioning Kelly Square, and I have to say, when I was a driver, I would have never gone to Kelly Square, never, because it was just a free-for-all, and I had great confidence in my skills as a driver, but I wasn't so sure about the other people who were coming in, either barging in or just mincing their way through. And again, now 1 year, this is a long time ago, but there used to be during the summer, I think it was South High kids would impersonate different personalities from the Canal District area, and there used to be a horse and wagon that would go through Kelly Square. And my husband and I took one of those rides. The horses had blinders on, and we were going through Kelly Square at 5 o'clock at night, with people careening around. Now, as a pedestrian, I avoid that like the plague. Yeah. And even though, again, the powers that be say, "Oh, it's so much better. Oh, it's this and it's that," I'm not willing to take my life in my hands. And no matter how, quote unquote, it's been improved, it's not walkable. And so I don't think adding a crosswalk or adding signs or adding audibles that say yellow lights are flashing is going to convince me otherwise. Yeah.
No, sometimes I think there just needs to be more traffic stoppage. There needs to be more light signals. Unfortunately, there's I think the main design for Kelly Square was really focused on motorists.
Amen.
Safety as well, which unfortunate because it's still I know now it's like not as wide of a span to cross, but still, when you have a lot more traffic nowadays, and it seems like, I don't know what happened with COVID, but I feel like a lot of people forgot how to drive responsibly after COVID. But I think just in Worcester, though, it's because we've had this population explosion and we have a lot more traffic. I think we really need to do some real traffic studies and maybe figure out where to put better, some traffic lights so it's safe for people to cross. But even, especially in the neighborhoods too, I think is where we're seeing a lot of pedestrian hazards. So that's one of the big goals of mine is to improve pedestrian safety throughout District 2. So there's some, I know we were just talking about Lake Ave, there's some really, Lake Ave's basically a double wide highway to cross to as a pedestrian, it's really hard to cross from like Hamilton to get to Lake Ave. So I think there's ways that we can by putting up crossing signals, maybe doing a traffic study down there to improve, slowing down motorists and B, making it safer for pedestrians. It's just time we really have to take a good look at some of these major roadways that we have and how can work to improve them and make them safer. But the pedestrian safety stuff it's a big deal.
Well, I think there's an inherent conflict between vehicles and people, even though vehicles are driven, at least by right now, they're driven by people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the time being.
I am praying for the day when we have autonomous vehicles, but anyway. And I think once people get behind the wheel, they tend to think about themselves as opposed to the collective. In other words, that they are also, at times they're also a pedestrian. And they're late for work, or they've got to go and pick the kid up at the soccer practice, and so they don't want to wait. While they don't want to slow down. And I think there were so many vehicles. That's the other thing. There are so many vehicles, and maybe this sounds like poo-poo from somebody who doesn't drive anymore, but walkability is very important for our physical health and our mental health as well. So there should be places where the vehicles are banned, and yes, it's going to be harder for if you want to go to a destination to be to park far away. But isn't that also the argument for public transportation? I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Bring people in, and everybody like at Disneyland or Disney World. I mean, you leave your car out in the outskirts, and then you take whatever transportation, whether it's the monorail or the bus, and it's efficient, and you're going to get there, and that type of mentality, as opposed to, because we're never going to live co-equally, cars and people. We're never going to do it. I mean, despite all of the well-intended platitudes, we're never going to do it. So, just to pick up on that point, oftentimes crossing the streets, I mean, I will plan where I'm going to be so that I don't have to cross the street. Because I don't know that drivers, despite the crosswalks, despite the signaling, despite the signage, are paying enough attention.
That's true too, It's speed and not paying attention.
Right.
That's really, and I think I don't know, I haven't seen it for a while, but driving around the city, there used to see more WPD out there with radar guns and making stops. I think that obviously still happens, but I think traffic enforcement will definitely goes a long way to, especially if it's local people that are speeding. Eventually they'll get the point that, okay, I might be pulled over if from speeding up and down Mill Street or up and down Hamilton Street. I think that could go a long way, but definitely maybe more traffic enforcement, more traffic studies, I think need to be done. But what you said about transportation, public transportation, is I think another big goal for the city. Of right now we have the fare-free transportation, and WRTA is continuing that. But I think for us with our work when we were on the Disability Commission together was trying to explore how to improve accessible taxis, how to improve the WRTA paratransit service. And they're both good services when we have them, but I think there's ways that we can improve and make transportation more accessible for everyone. I think the city's done a pretty good job of trying to lobby with the WRTA and encourage them to do the right thing, and they're definitely listening. And I think they're getting a new administrator, or they're looking for a new administrator soon, so that will be, I think, a really good opportunity for the community to engage with them and say, hey, look, this is, we need more better, like whether it's like neighborhood micro transit. That's a big thing that's going on. I know with some other transit agencies in Massachusetts have done something like that, where it's like a smaller bus that would just do maybe just a route up and down like West Boylston Street, for Quincy students, or maybe routes that are just like in the downtown area, like a big loop, something like that. And that can be safer for pedestrians, so you don't have to walk throughout all downtown. You can take a bus here and go from Hanover Theater up to the courthouse lofts, for example. You can, instead of walking that span, you could take a microtransit, a bus. So I think those programs like that can be really beneficial to Worcester, and a lot more people now are really paying attention to transportation.
About a month or so ago, I was involved with the new city Department of Transportation and Mobility.
Oh, sorry, Steve Roll, right?
Yes.
His new role, yep.
And the consultants that Worcester has hired, Nyman Nygaard, I think it was.
Okay.
And we took a walk from the Worcester Public Library up Franklin Street, down Main Street towards the Central Mass YMCA.
Okay.
And then we crossed Main Street and walked down in the vicinity of Southbridge Street, Miss Worcester Diner, so across the street, so to speak, from Polar Park.
Okay.
We also we walked over to Millbury Street. We crossed Kelly Square, which, by the way, none of the yellow lights are flashing. Were flashing because they had been disarmed.
Why was that?
So,
okay, that doesn't make any
I think
sense.
because somebody probably hit one of the things. So so fortunately there were enough of us to cross the street and to make the cars halt, even though the cars had, the cars had a visual with all these bodies in front of it, but there was nothing attracting them. Ultimately, we ended up at the hub, which is the dispatch center for the city buses.
Okay.
And we boarded a city bus, and I have to admit, I had not been on a bus for a gazillion years. Anyway, and we took the bus to Great Brook Valley.
Okay.
And I was very struck by the fact that there were riders.
Ridership's up. It's working. Yeah, the Fairfree's working.
And I thought, this is very easy. More so when we were coming back into the city, it'd be more ridership.
Yeah.
But we also talked about the stigma that is associated with the bus. And again, growing up in Holden and having been a driver, when I was a little girl, coming down into Worcester to go to dancing school or whatever, so just like, oh no, you don't take the bus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh no, and it's kind of like, what, like an undesirable element is on the bus.
Yeah,
okay?
there's still that stigma.
Exactly. And
I
just thought to myself, but this is efficient. I mean, and it's easy to get on and off. I mean, I was asking questions because I remember riding the bus that the stop, you'd pull the buzzer and it would go, and then you would know, okay, this is City Hospital or this is whatever. There was none of that. So for someone like me, it would have been difficult, because I would not have known where we were because nothing was announced.
Okay. None of the stops were announced.
None of the stops were announced. But again, I was very impressed by the fact how easy it was, and I was impressed, and I suppose I shouldn't have been, by, hey, it's being utilized, and I mean that's what it's there for. And I think so often, people say, well, not in my neighborhood, or I don't use that. I know it's available, but I don't use it. And the reason that they don't use it is the stigma that is associated with it, or the stigma that will attach to them if they avail themselves of it. I think the same thing, and sorry, I'm going all up.
No, it's okay.
But when people... When I have clients who are getting to the age of retirement, and that's like, well, there are activities at the senior center. Oh, well, I'm not a senior, and it's kind of like, well, by age you are, but they think the senior center is quote unquote for old people, right? And it's
I'm not one of those.
Exactly, I'm not one of those. So I think the same thing with transportation or being a pedestrian, or I don't need that, or that's not of interest to me. And I think people are so afraid to get categorized, and they're not. You're not going to be categorized if you ride the bus. if you go to the senior center, if you live in a certain neighborhood. I think those need to be debunked. And when I heard you saying about neighborhoods, yes, I think Worcester definitely has a tradition of neighborhoods, and I think that's what sets it apart from other places, because you have that neighborhood sensibility. But I think in the past, that neighborhood sensibility was associated with a certain ethnic group or a certain religion, and now it's just, it happens to be a place where there are houses and parks and
exactly. It should be safe, and people should be able to get around these neighborhoods safely on their outside of their cars.
Right.
I think that with Worcester being such like a spread out city, I think, and the whole 20th century thing with being very car focused and having your car is the way to go, and I think that definitely led to a lack of infrastructure around public transportation. But now we're it's, I think, swinging back the other way, and more we're realizing that public transportation it's better for traffic. It's more, it saves, it's better for the environment. But it's a lifeline for people. People use it to get to work, especially seniors that might not be able to drive anymore, use it to get to medical appointments. The paratransit is a great, WRTA paratransit service is great for that. So many people use it to get, from their home to medical appointments or to social appointments. Right. Yeah. So it's really important that we have a really strong public transportation system. And the fact that ridership is up now since the fare freeze has been going on, and there might be some other factors related to it, but fare free is definitely one of the factors. And plus the fares only contribute, I believe, to something around 14% of the WRTA's budget. So it's not impossible for them to do this. So I think that will really improve. I think the one thing that a big city like Worcester has always been missing, a more robust public transportation system. And I know as the city council can only do so much with that, but it's time. I think our leadership really takes some strong stances and really wants and tries to push these local agencies and departments to bring better solutions to our community.
You're making me think also that at one point in time retail was downtown, and then let's say in the 70s and 80s it migrated to the Auburn Mall, Solomon Pond Mall, Blacks. But in order to get those places, you need to have a car.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
And so if you don't have a car, your options are, befriend someone with a car, or, isn't there an option to go to these places, that again make it convenient, that it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just thinking how the emphasis now downtown is more entertainment and food and beverage rather than retail per se. Yeah. But if there were mechanisms where people leave your car and outside
of downtown and just walk around,
and come and walk around, visit our parks are amazing resources, and I don't think a lot of people know.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, East District 2 has some of the best parks. You have Green Hill Park, Bell Pond, Holmes Field, Harrington Way. Lake Park is a state park, but it's still in the district. But yeah, we have Worcester has incredible green space, and I know the Parks Department has done a lot of work in the past decade. I'd say really, I think improving a lot of parks, but there's ways I think we can make these parks more accessible, more wheelchair accessible, more accessible for people with different mobility challenges, and that really benefits us everyone as well. You know what I mean? If a park path is accessible for me as a wheelchair user, it's definitely accessible for a parent, pushing a stroller, or for someone using a walker or a rollator. So I think Elm Park's done it as a good example. They did some really good, spots next to benches where someone that uses a wheelchair or something can post up there, or at Coast Pond they did that the playground, the accessible playground. But I don't see a reason why we can't do some of these things throughout the city, and I think that's what's happening. I know there's some plans for the park next to Lakeview School on Coburn Ave that they're going to be doing some. I believe I heard some accessible play spaces. But yeah, I think just making sure everything is equitable and our green space is equitable and accessible for everyone will bring more people to it. And I think encourage people to want to, preserve these green spaces too. I think and people will learn more about them. Like you said, so many people don't really maybe know all the parks that the city has. But improving transportation to get there and making sure those parks are more accessible once you're there, I think will go a long way.
Question for you, as someone on wheels, what is the best kind of surface?
So we use a lot of a lot of state parks use what is it called? It's stone dust.
Okay.
Yep. So it's what happens. What's great about that is when it gets wet and it compacts, it really stays put, and it's I think a pretty cheaper than paving for certain. But that's a really good substrate to use and surface to use for making trails accessible. One idea that I have that I'd love to see is behind Buffoni Rink on Lake Ave, there's about 13 acres of woods there that's been there forever. And there's some relatively flat areas inside it. I think it would be great to maybe do like a kind of walking trail because it's a pretty big space and it's just a wooded area that would be great for people just to access being able to be in the city but go for a walk through the woods. In the summertime and in the winter, and there's deer in there. There's all types of animals. It's really, I think, a kind of an unpolished little green space that we have. But I think making that accessible would be huge. Maybe just a single trail that goes from one side of the park to the other, where everyone can enjoy. That'll bring more, make more use of the space too.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. I mean, now I've just touched on that. Now we have to wrap up.
Yeah, it's okay. No, I think I have a lot of ideas for it, but a lot of it's focused on, obviously focused on accessibility, but
right.
Really focused on quality of life for everyone. So that's why I'm running, and that's what I hope to bring, and just make sure that Worcester moves forward in a way that we're all in it together.
Perfect. I love that. So. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Liz. Thank you for having this.
Do you have any? Is there? You said your website is.
Oh, yep. So we have we don't have a website up yet, but we're building it out. But we have a Facebook page. So just Robert Bilotta for Worcester City Council, and then you can find us on Facebook there, and on Instagram we have the Instagram account Bilotta 4, and then the word district 2. So it's Bilotta 4 District 2. And you can find us there, and we're posting stuff all the time.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you, Liz.
Join me next time for another edition of Connecting the Dots.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at lizbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Lizbeth Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, JD, LLM, in association with Compliments.